The wind didn't just blow down Elm Street that December morning, it bit. It sliced through layers like it had a grudge, especially against anyone foolish enough to be outside before sunrise. Most folks were still tucked under blankets, dreaming of warm coffee and quiet mornings. But not her. She was curled up against the brick wall of a closed bookstore, knees pulled tight to her chest, arms wrapped around them like that might trap some heat. A thin blanket, more gray than its original color, was draped over her shoulders, but it flapped uselessly in the gusts, offering about as much warmth as tissue paper. Her sneakers were split at the toes, the laces frayed and knotted twice over. One sock had a hole big enough to show her pinky toe, which she kept tucked under the other foot to keep it from freezing. She was 9 years old, though she looked younger. Too thin, too quiet, too used to making herself small. Her name was Maya, but no one had said it out loud in days. Not since the shelter ran out of space and turned them away. Not since her mom stumbled off 3 nights ago, muttering something about fixing things and never came back. Now it was just her and Leo, her 6-year-old brother who was sleeping fitfully beside her, wrapped in the same blanket, his breath coming in short, raspy hatches. Leo had been coughing for almost a week. At first it was just a tickle, something the nurse at the old shelter said would pass. But it hadn't. It got worse, especially at night when the cold settled deep into his chest. He'd wake up gasping, eyes wide with panic, and she'd hold him close, rubbing his back until he drifted off again. The nurse had said milk might help, something about soothing his throat and giving him strength. Calcium, she'd said. Kids need it, especially when they're sick. Maya remembered that. She'd been thinking about it all night every time Leo coughed in his sleep. Milk. Just 1 carton. It felt like a huge thing to ask for, but also the smallest thing in the world. She'd seen kids at school drink it like it was nothing, pouring it into little cartons at lunch, sometimes even leaving half behind. But for her, it might as well have been gold. She watched the street slowly come alive. Delivery trucks rumbled past. A man in a uniform unlocked the bakery 2 blocks down, and the smell of fresh bread drifted toward her, making her stomach twist with hunger. She ignored it. Hunger was familiar. She could handle hunger. But Leo's cough, that was new and scary and getting worse. Across the street, the convenience store flickered to life. The neon open sign buzzed as it lit up, casting a pale orange glow on the wet sidewalk. She knew that store. She'd stood outside it before, watching people go in and out, buying coffee, snacks, soda, milk. She'd never gone in, not without money. But today felt different. Today, Leo needed something she couldn't give him on her own. She took a deep breath, the cold air stinging her lungs. She gently shook Leo awake. "Hey," she whispered. "I'm gonna go get us something. You stay right here, okay? Don't move. I'll be right back." Leo blinked up at her, eyes glassy with sleep and fever. "Where are you going?" "Just across the street. I'll be fast." He nodded weakly and curled back into the blanket. She smoothed his hair, too long, too tangled, and stood up, her legs stiff from the cold. She walked slowly at first, then faster, as if moving quickly might keep the fear from catching up to her. The store's automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh, and warm air rushed out, wrapping around her like a hug. For a second, she just stood there, blinking in the brightness, letting the heat sink into her bones. The place smelled like coffee, plastic, and something sweet, maybe donuts. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it again. Focus. She walked past the rows of chips and candy, past the soda coolers humming softly, and straight to the back where the refrigerated cases stood. There they were, cartons of milk, white chocolate, strawberry. She reached for the plain white one. It felt cold even through the plastic. She held it in her hands, imagining pouring it into a cup for Leo, watching him drink it slowly, his breathing easing. Then reality hit. She had no money, not a single coin. Her pockets were empty except for a crumpled tissue and a broken pencil. She couldn't just take it. She knew that. Stealing wasn't right, and besides, the clerk, a tired-looking woman with gray hair, was watching the aisles from behind the counter. Maya's heart pounded. She stepped away from the cooler, clutching the milk carton like it might disappear. She looked around, desperate. Maybe someone would help. Maybe if she asked nicely. Just then, the door chimed again. A man walked in. He wasn't like the usual customers. He wore a long, dark coat that looked expensive, not puffy or worn like most winter jackets. His shoes were clean, polished. He carried himself like he didn't have to worry about anything, like the cold, the rent, whether his little brother would stop coughing. He glanced at the coffee machine, then at the newspaper rack, calm and unhurried. Maya froze. This was her chance, or her worst mistake. She didn't know which. She took a shaky step forward. Then another. Her legs felt like jelly, but she kept going. She stopped a few feet from him, holding the milk carton in front of her like a shield. "Excuse me, sir?" Her voice came out softer than she meant it to, almost a whisper. The man turned. He looked down at her, really looked. Not with annoyance, not with pity, but with attention. His eyes were kind but sharp, like he saw more than most people did. She swallowed hard. I need milk. For my brother. He's sick." She held up the carton. "I don't have any money right now. But I promise. I'll pay you back when I'm older." The words tumbled out fast, like if she said them quickly enough, they might make sense. She braced herself for a sigh, a shake of the head. Maybe even a sharp, "Get out of here." She'd heard it before. But the man didn't do any of that. He just looked at her. Really looked. And something in his expression changed. Not pity, not charity. Something deeper. Like he recognized something in her. Maybe it was the way she stood, small but not broken. Maybe it was the way she said, "I'll pay you back," like it was a real promise, not just a kid's empty words. He didn't say anything right away. He glanced toward the door where Leo was probably still shivering under the blanket. Then he looked back at her. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice quiet but steady. "Maya," she said. "And your brother?" "Leo," he nodded slowly. Then without another word, he walked past her to the cooler. He picked up not one but 2 cartons of milk. Then he went to the bread aisle and grabbed a loaf of whole wheat. He added a bunch of bananas, a jar of peanut butter, and a small box of granola bars. All the while, Maya just stood there, confused, heart hammering. He carried everything to the counter. The clerk rang it up without comment. He paid with a black card. No hesitation, no counting change. Then he turned to Maya and handed her the bag. It was heavier than she expected. Warmth radiated from the bread and the milk cartons clinked softly. "You don't owe me money," he said, crouching down so they were eye to eye. His voice was calm, like he was telling her something important. Not just being nice. "But if you really want to pay me back, promise me you'll stay in school. Every day. Even when it's hard. Even when you don't feel like it. That's your IOU." Maya stared at him, eyes wide. She didn't know what to say. No one had ever asked her to promise something like that. No one had ever believed she could keep a promise like that. I will," she managed. He smiled, just a small one, and pulled a business card from his coat pocket. He flipped it over and wrote something quickly with a pen. Then he handed it to her. "If you ever need help, real help, call this number anytime." She took the card. It felt important, like a key. She looked at the back. In neat handwriting, it said, "Stay strong. D." Before she could thank him, he stood up, gave her one last nod, and walked out the door, disappearing into the gray morning. Maya stood there for a long moment, clutching the grocery bag and the card, her mind spinning. The clerk behind the counter cleared her throat softly. "You okay, honey?" Maya nodded, blinking back tears. Yeah, I'm okay." She walked out slowly, the warm bag cradled in her arms like treasure. Outside, Leo was sitting up, rubbing his eyes. "Did you get it?" he asked, voice hoarse. She knelt beside him and opened the bag. "Not just milk," she said, pulling out the bread, the bananas. "We got breakfast." Leo's eyes lit up, and for the first time in days he smiled. Maya looked down at the business card in her hand. She didn't understand everything that had just happened. But she knew one thing. That man hadn't just given her milk. He'd given her hope. And she wasn't going to waste it. She tucked the card into the inside pocket of her jacket, right over her heart, where no rain or wind could reach it. Then she tore open the milk carton, poured a little into the bottle cap, and held it to Leo's lips. "Drink slow," she whispered. As he sipped, his cough eased, just a little. And for the first time in a long time, Maya felt like maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. The days after the milk didn't magically fix everything, but they felt different. Lighter somehow. Like a door had cracked open just enough to let in a sliver of something better. Maya kept the business card tucked deep in her jacket, touching it every now and then like a secret talisman. She didn't tell Leo about the man or the promise, not yet. She wasn't sure how to explain it, and part of her worried that saying it out loud might make it vanish like a dream you try to hold on to after waking. They stayed near the bookstore for 2 more nights. The cold kept getting worse. Frost formed on the sidewalk by dawn, and Leo's cough came back stronger, rattling deep in his chest. Maya tried giving him the milk every few hours, wrapped him in the blanket as tight as she could, and sang him the lullaby their grandmother used to hum. Soft, off-key, but steady. Still, he shivered through the night, his forehead warm to the touch. On the 3rd morning, a woman in a bright yellow coat approached them. She wasn't from the shelter or the police. She looked like someone who worked in an office, but her eyes were gentle. "Hi," she said, crouching a few feet away, not too close. "My name's Lena. I work with a program that helps kids and families find safe places to stay. A friend told me about you." Maya stiffened. "Who told you?" Lena smiled, not offended. "A man named Daniel. He said you might need someone to check in." Maya's breath caught. Daniel, that was the D on the card. He'd actually done something. He hadn't just walked away. She didn't trust easily, couldn't afford to, but something about Lena felt real. She didn't push. Didn't make promises she couldn't keep. She just sat on the curb, talked about the weather, asked how old Leo was, and listened when Maya finally whispered that their mom hadn't come back. By afternoon, Lena had arranged for them to stay in a small, clean room at a temporary housing facility run by a local nonprofit. It wasn't fancy. 2 narrow beds, a sink, a shared bathroom down the hall, but it had heat. Real heat, and walls that blocked the wind. That night, Leo slept without coughing once. Maya lay awake for hours, listening to his steady breathing, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Not from sadness, from relief so deep it ached. Over the next week, things settled into a fragile rhythm. Lena visited every other day, bringing groceries, winter coats that actually fit, and school enrollment forms. Maya hadn't been to school in over a month. She'd missed too many days after their last shelter got shut down, and the school stopped calling. But Lena said it wasn't too late. "You're smart," she told Maya, "and you're tough. Those are the 2 things that matter most." Maya wanted to believe her, but doubt crept in when she walked into the new school. A brick building with loud hallways and kids who all seemed to know each other. She wore secondhand clothes, carried a backpack with a broken strap, and flinched when the bell rang too loud. At lunch, she sat alone, picking at the sandwich Lena had packed. She missed Leo, who was staying with a temporary foster family nearby while Maya adjusted to school. It was only supposed to be for a few days, but it felt like forever. Then, one afternoon, a letter came. It wasn't in an envelope. It was folded neatly and slipped into her locker between math and science class. Her name was written on the front in careful handwriting, Maya, and when she opened it, her heart jumped. "Dear Maya, I heard you started school this week. Good, keep going. Even on hard days. Especially on hard days. Leo's doing better, I checked. He asked about you. Remember your IOU. Dina, no address. No phone number. Just those few lines. But they meant everything. Someone was watching. Someone believed she could do this. She read it 3 times before tucking it into her notebook. That night, she wrote back on a sheet of lined paper from her binder. Dear D, school is loud. But I went all 5 days. I miss Leo. I haven't forgotten my promise. Maya. She didn't know where to send it, so she gave it to Lena. If you talk to him... Can you give him this? Lena nodded. I think he'd like that. Weeks passed. Winter melted into a wet gray spring. Maya started raising her hand in class. She made one friend, a quiet girl who liked drawing and shared her pencils. She visited Leo every weekend, reading him stories and bringing him little drawings she made during lunch. He'd gained weight. His cough was almost gone, and he smiled more. Then one rainy Tuesday, Lena pulled her aside after school. Daniel wants to meet you, she said gently. Just for a few minutes. At a cafe downtown. No pressure. You can say no, Maya's stomach flipped. She thought about the man in the store. The calm eyes, the quiet voice, the way he hadn't made her feel small. She nodded. Okay. The cafe was warm and smelled like cinnamon and coffee. Daniel was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 mugs steaming in front of him. He stood when he saw her. You grew, he said simply. She smiled a little. It's been 4 months, he gestured for her to sit. How's school? Hard, but good. And Leo? He's happy. He likes his foster mom. She lets him keep his stuffed bear. Daniel nodded. He didn't ask about their mom. Didn't pry. Just listened as Maya talked about her math test, the book she was reading, how she wanted to be a nurse someday because nurses helped Leo when he was sick. When she finished, he pushed one of the mugs toward her. Hot chocolate. No marshmallows. You didn't strike me as a marshmallow person. She laughed, really laughed, and took a sip. It was sweet and rich, the kind she'd only seen in movies. I got your letter, he said. I liked it. You got it? I did. And I have something for you. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small notebook, thick with a blue cover. Write in it. Every day if you can. What you learn. What you dream about. What scares you. It's yours. No one else has to see it. She took it carefully, like it might break. Why? Because your story matters, he said. Even when you feel invisible, you're not. Someone's always listening, even if you can't see them. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching rain slide down the window. Then he said, I'm not your savior, Maya. I'm just someone who saw a kid with a promise and believed she'd keep it. She looked down at her hands, then back at him. Why did you help us? He thought for a long moment. Because once, a long time ago, someone gave me a chance when I had nothing. Not money, just a chance. And it changed everything. I'm just passing it on, he didn't say more. Didn't need to. Before she left, he handed her another business card, this one blank on the back. Next time you write me, use this. And don't worry about stamps. Lena will get it to me. She walked home in the rain, the notebook tucked under her coat, dry and safe. That night, she opened it to the first page and wrote, Today I met D. He didn't treat me like a charity case. He treated me like I was somebody. Maybe I am. Months turned into a year. Maya stayed in school. She joined the after-school reading club. She started tutoring younger kids in math, something Lena arranged through a community program Daniel quietly funded. Leo moved into the same foster home as her, and though it wasn't forever, it felt like home for now. Their mom called once, voice shaky, saying she was getting help. Maya didn't know if it was true, but she hoped it was. Through it all, she wrote to Daniel. Not every week, but often enough. Sometimes just a sentence. Got an A on my science project. Other times, whole pages about how scared she was of failing, or how much she missed her grandma, or how Leo laughed when she made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. Daniel always wrote back. Short notes, usually. Never promises of more money or grand gestures. Just reminders. Keep going. You're doing better than you think. Leo's proud of you. Then came the day everything almost fell apart. It was late fall again. Maya was in 8th grade now. Taller, stronger, her voice steadier. She'd been accepted into a special high school program for students interested in health sciences, but the application required a stable home address for at least 6 months, and their foster placement was ending. The family loved them, but they were moving out of state. Panic set in fast. Maya couldn't lose this chance. Not after everything. She stayed up all night trying to figure out what to do. Call shelters, ask Lena, beg the school? Instead, she did the only thing that felt right. She wrote Daniel a letter. Not a note. A real letter. 5 pages long. She told him about the program, how much it meant to her, how scared she was of losing Leo again, how she didn't know where to turn. She ended it with, I know you said you're not my savior, but right now I don't know who else to ask. She dropped it in the mailbox the next morning, hands shaking. 2 days later, Lena showed up at school during lunch. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying, but she was smiling. He read it, she said, and he's already made calls. Within a week, a new placement was arranged with a retired nurse who lived nearby and had room for 2 kids. She'd worked in pediatric care for 30 years. She even had a spare room with 2 beds and a bookshelf full of science books. She's perfect, Lena said, and she's willing to be your long-term foster mom if you want. Maya hugged her so tight she almost knocked the air out of her. That weekend, she sat at the kitchen table in her new room, sunlight streaming through the window. Leo was outside playing with the neighbor's dog. She opened her blue notebook, now half filled, and wrote, I almost gave up, but I didn't because someone believed I wouldn't. My IOU isn't just about school anymore. It's about becoming someone who helps others the way I was helped. I'm still paying it back. Every day. She didn't know it yet, but that promise would carry her through high school, college, and far beyond. And Daniel? He never asked for thanks, never showed up at graduations or demanded credit. He just stayed in the background, steady, quiet, like a lighthouse you don't see until you're lost at sea. But Maya always knew he was there. And that was enough. High school wasn't easy, but it wasn't the kind of hard Maya had known before. Before hard meant cold nights, empty stow. Max wondering if Leo would wake up coughing again. Now hard meant staying up late to finish a biology project after working her part-time job at the library, or feeling out of place in a classroom where kids talked about vacations and new phones like they were normal things. But this kind of hard didn't scare her. Because now hard came with hope. She lived with Ms. Rivera, the retired nurse who'd opened her home to her and Leo 2 years earlier. Ms. Rivera didn't coddle them. She expected chores, good grades and honesty, but she also made pancakes on Sundays, kept the heat turned up high in winter, and never once made them feel like they were charity cases. She treated them like family, plain and simple. And slowly, without even realizing it, Maya started to believe she belonged. Every morning before school, Maya made Leo's lunch, always with a little note tucked inside his sandwich bag. Sometimes it was a joke, sometimes just, "You got this." He was in middle school now, doing well, making friends, his laugh loud and easy. The cough that once kept them both awake was just a memory. Maya kept her promise to Daniel. She went to school every single day, even when she was tired, even when she felt like no one understood her. Even when a girl in her chemistry class whispered something about her second-hand coat, she walked in anyway, head high. She'd learned that showing up was half the battle, and she kept writing. Not just in her blue notebook, though that was still going strong, but in letters to Daniel. She didn't write as often now, maybe once a month, but she always told him the truth, about the time she bombed a math test and cried in the bathroom, about how she'd been accepted into the school's health mentorship program, about how she'd started volunteering at the community clinic on weekends, helping with paperwork and organizing supplies. She never asked for anything. She just shared her journey, like he was a quiet friend walking beside her. Daniel's replies were still short, but they always came. Sometimes just a postcard with a quote on it. Once, a book about women in medicine with a note. "Thought you'd like this." He never mentioned money, never offered more than what was already in place. Tutoring, school supplies, help with college applications through Lena. He made it clear that the real gift wasn't what he gave her, but what she was building herself. Then came senior year. It hit her like a wave one October morning. This was it. The last stretch. College applications loomed like mountains. She wanted to study pre-med, maybe become a pediatrician one day, but college cost more than she could imagine. Scholarships felt like lottery tickets. Everyone wanted them, few got them. She stayed up late researching, filling out forms, writing essays until her eyes burned. Her college essay was about milk. Not just the carton she'd held that cold morning, but what it meant. The moment someone saw her not as a problem, but as a person with a future. She wrote about promises, about dignity, about how help doesn't always come with fanfare, but sometimes with a quiet, stay in school and a business card slipped into a small hand. She didn't tell anyone she'd written that, not even Ms. Rivera. She was too afraid it sounded silly. But when she hit submit, she felt a strange peace, like she'd finally told the truth about who she was. Weeks passed. Rejection letters came first, polite, impersonal. Then one rainy afternoon, an email popped up with a university logo she recognized. Her heart stopped. She clicked it with trembling fingers. "Congratulations. You have been awarded a full-ride scholarship." She read it 3 times. Then she ran downstairs, barefoot, and threw her arms around Ms. Rivera, sobbing. Leo came running from his room, eyes wide. "What happened? Are you okay?" "I got in," she gasped. "Full scholarship. I'm going to college." That night she wrote Daniel a long letter, not on notebook paper, but on nice stationery Ms. Rivera had given her for birthdays. She told him everything, the fear, the waiting, the moment she read the email, how Leo had hugged her so tight he lifted her off the ground. She ended it with, "I haven't forgotten my IOU. In fact, I think I'm just getting started." She mailed it the next day. A week later, Lena called. "He got your letter," she said, voice warm. "He's proud of you, Maya, really proud." But there was more. Lena paused. "He also wants to meet you." Before you leave for college, just the two of you. He says it's important. Maya's stomach fluttered. They hadn't seen each other in over a year, not since that rainy cafe visit in middle school. She agreed. They met at a small park near the river, benches under old oak trees, leaves just starting to turn gold. Daniel was waiting, hands in his coat pockets, looking older but still calm, still steady. "You look like a college student already," he said with a small smile. She laughed nervously. "I don't feel like one." They walked slowly along the path, the river glinting in the afternoon sun. He didn't ask about her plans or her fears. Instead, he told her a story about his own childhood, how he'd grown up in a neighborhood not so different from hers, how a teacher once stayed after school every day to help him with reading, how that one act of belief had changed the course of his life. "I never paid her back," he said, "not with money, but I tried to live in a way that honored what she saw in me. That's what you're doing, Maya. You're honoring that moment in the store, not by giving me cash, but by becoming someone who matters." She looked at him, eyes stinging. "I wouldn't be here without you." "You would," he said gently. "Maybe slower, maybe harder, but you had the grit already. I just handed you a flashlight." They sat on a bench watching a group of kids chase pigeons. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. "This isn't from me," he said. "It's from a foundation I work with. It covers books, housing deposits, emergency expenses, things scholarships don't always cover. Consider it startup fuel." She took it, stunned. "I can't." "You can," he interrupted softly. "Because you've earned it. Not because you asked, but because you showed up." Every single day, she didn't argue. She knew better now. Sometimes help isn't weakness, it's partnership. Before they parted, he handed her another business card. This one was different. Thicker paper, no company name, just a phone number and an email. "This one's personal," he said. "If you ever need advice, not money, just someone to talk to, use it. No IOUs required." She nodded, tucking it into her wallet right next to the first one. College was overwhelming at first. Big lecture halls, strangers everywhere, nights of doubt when she wondered if she really belonged. But she kept going. She joined a student group for first-gen college students. She found a work-study job in the campus health center. And every Sunday she called Leo, who was now in high school himself, talking about robotics club and college plans of his own. She wrote Daniel once a semester now, short updates. Passed organic chemistry. Volunteered at a free clinic downtown. Miss home. He always replied, usually with a book recommendation or a note about something happening in the city she'd grown up in. Then, during her junior year, something unexpected happened. A local news station was doing a series on everyday heroes, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. A reporter had heard about Maya through the campus health center, a student from the streets now on track to become a doctor, who still volunteered weekly at shelters. They wanted to interview her. Maya hesitated. She didn't want attention, didn't want to be a poster child. But then she thought about all the kids like her, kids who felt invisible, who thought their story didn't matter. Maybe sharing it could help someone else believe. She agreed, but with one condition. "I want to tell the milk story," she said. "But I won't use his real name. He doesn't want credit," the reporter agreed. The segment aired on a quiet Tuesday evening. Maya sat in a simple chair wearing a plain sweater, speaking calmly about that cold morning. The plea for milk, the promise, the quiet support that followed. She didn't dramatize it. She just told the truth, how one act of kindness rooted in respect, not pity, had changed everything. She ended with, "He didn't give me a handout. He gave me a hand up. And that's the difference between surviving and thriving." The video spread faster than anyone expected, shared on social media, picked up by national outlets. People called it the milk promise. Strangers sent messages. "This gave me hope. I'm going to help someone today because of this." And then, the calls started coming, not just to Maya, but to Daniel's office. Reporters wanted interviews. People wanted to know who he was. Charities asked for donations. For the first time in years, his quiet life was under a spotlight. He didn't give interviews. Didn't post anything online, but he did send Maya a note. "You told the story beautifully. Now let it do its work." A few weeks later, he invited her to a small gathering at a community center. Not a party, just a few people who'd supported her journey. Lena, Ms. Rivera, Leo, a couple of teachers, and a few others from the foundation. No cameras, no speeches. Just coffee, cookies, and quiet conversation. At the end of the evening, as people were leaving, Daniel pulled Maya aside. He handed her a new business card, this one completely blank on both sides. "Now," he said with a knowing look, "you get to write your own IOU." She stared at it, then at him. "What do you mean?" "Your turn," he said simply. "You've received. Now it's time to give. Not because you owe someone, but because you understand what it feels like to need a hand. The world needs people like you, Maya. Not just doctors. People who remember where they came from." She held the blank card like it was sacred. For the first time, she didn't feel like the one being helped. She felt like she was becoming the helper. That night, on the bus back to campus, she looked out the window at the city lights. She thought about that 9-year-old girl shivering outside a store, holding a carton of milk like it was the most precious thing in the world. She thought about the man who saw her not as a burden but as a promise, and she made a new promise to herself. One day, she wouldn't just treat sick kids. She'd build a place where no child had to beg for milk, where help came with dignity, not shame, where every "I'll pay you back someday" was met not with doubt but with belief. She didn't know how yet. But she knew she'd find a way, because someone once believed in her. And now it was her turn to believe in someone else. Graduation day arrived with a sky so blue it looked painted. Maya stood in her cap and gown, the fabric stiff and unfamiliar, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the tassel. Around her, students laughed, hugged their families, snapped photos with phones held high. She scanned the crowd, heart pounding, not with nerves but with a quiet kind of awe. She'd made it. All those nights studying under a dim lamp, all the bus rides across town to internships, all the times she doubted whether she belonged. And here she was, doctor of medicine. Not just a dream anymore. Real Leo found her first. He was taller now, broad-shouldered, wearing a button-down shirt he'd clearly ironed himself. He pulled her into a hug so tight she laughed. "You did it," he whispered, voice thick. "We did it," she corrected, squeezing back. He'd been her anchor through every storm, her reason to keep going when the weight felt too heavy. Ms. Rivera arrived next, eyes glistening behind her glasses. She didn't say much, just held Maya's face in her hands for a long moment, then nodded like she'd known this day would come all along. And then, near the edge of the crowd, she saw him. Daniel stood apart from the families and balloons, hands in his pockets, watching quietly. He wasn't smiling broadly, but there was a softness in his eyes, a kind of pride that didn't need words. Maya walked over, her gown rustling with each step. "You came," she said. "I wouldn't miss it," he replied. "You earned this." They stood together for a while, watching the celebration unfold. No grand speeches, no dramatic reunion. Just two people who'd shared a quiet thread of trust across a decade. Now standing in the sunlight of its result, later, at a small dinner Ms. Rivera hosted at her house, just the four of them plus Lena, conversation flowed easily. Leo talked about his engineering internship. Ms. Rivera shared stories from her nursing days. Lena updated them on the community programs Daniel's foundation still quietly supported. At one point, Daniel turned to Maya. "What's next?" She took a breath. "I've accepted a residency at the Children's Hospital downtown, but I've also been working on something else." She pulled a folder from her bag, neatly organized, filled with sketches, budget outlines, and letters of support. "I want to open a clinic," she said. "Not just any clinic. One that serves families like ours. Homeless, low-income, kids who fall through the cracks. Free pediatric care, nutrition support, even help with school and housing referrals. A place where no one has to feel ashamed for asking for help." Silence settled over the table. Then Ms. Rivera reached out and squeezed her hand. "That's exactly what this city needs." Daniel studied the plans, his expression thoughtful. "It's ambitious, it is," Maya admitted. "But I've been talking to city officials, applying for grants, meeting with nonprofit leaders. I've got a location in mind, the old community center on 5th Street. It's been empty for years." He looked up. "You've done your homework." "I learned from the best," she said, glancing at him. He didn't promise money. Didn't say, "I'll fund it." Instead, he asked questions about staffing, sustainability, how she'd measure impact. He treated her idea not like a charity project, but like a real business. And that meant more than a blank check ever could. A few weeks after graduation, Maya got the news. Her grant application had been approved. Partial funding, enough to cover renovations and basic equipment. But she still needed more. A lot more. She didn't panic. She'd come too far for that. She started a small fundraiser online, sharing her story again, not for pity but for partnership. She posted photos of the empty building, her sketches of exam rooms with colorful walls and toy corners, quotes from kids she'd met during her rotations who'd said, "I didn't know doctors could be nice." Donations trickled in, $50 from a teacher, $200 from a retired couple. A local bakery pledged to host a milk and muffins day, with all proceeds going to the clinic. Then, one morning, an anonymous donor gave $150,000, enough to cover the rest of the build-out. Maya knew who it was. She didn't need a name. She just sent a simple text to the number on the personal card. "Thank you for believing before I even had walls." His reply came minutes later. "The walls are yours. The heart always was." Construction began that fall. Maya spent every free hour at the site covered in dust, arguing with contractors about where to put the hand sanitizer dispensers, choosing paint colors that felt warm, not clinical. She insisted on a small kitchenette, "so we can make warm milk for scared kids," she told the architect. Leo helped on weekends, building shelves, installing shelves, even painting a mural in the waiting room, a tree with deep roots and wide branches, with tiny hands holding onto it from all sides. The day before the official opening, Maya walked through the empty clinic alone. Sunlight streamed through the windows. The floors were clean, the exam tables covered in fresh paper, the toy bin filled with new stuffed animals. In the main hallway, a plaque read, "The Promise Clinic, because every child deserves a chance." She stopped in front of the reception desk and opened the top drawer. Inside, she placed a small worn business card, the very first one, now faded at the edges, the words, "Stay strong." They went still clear. Beside it, she put a new card of her own design, blank on the back, ready for the next child who walked in with a promise to keep. The opening day was quiet, not a big ceremony, just a ribbon cutting with a few community leaders, some local reporters, and a handful of families who'd already signed up for care. Maya wore a simple white coat, her stethoscope around her neck, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. By mid-morning, the waiting room was full, not with crowds, but with real people. A mother holding a toddler with a fever, a teenager with asthma, nervous about his inhaler, an older woman bringing her grandson whose cough sounded eerily familiar. Maya saw it, the same fear, the same hope she'd once carried. She knelt beside the little boy with the cough. "Hey," she said softly. "I used to get coughs like that too. Milk helped me. Want some?" His eyes widened. He nodded. She went to the kitchenette, poured a small cup of warm milk, and brought it back. As he sipped, his shoulders relaxed. His grandmother watched, tears in her eyes. "No one's ever offered him milk before," she whispered. "Just medicine," Maya smiled. "Sometimes the best medicine is kindness." Later that afternoon, as she was restocking bandages, the front door chimed. She looked up, expecting a patient. Instead, she saw a young girl, maybe 10 years old, standing just inside, clutching the hand of a much smaller boy. The girl's clothes were clean but thin, her shoes scuffed. She looked around the clinic with wide, uncertain eyes. Maya walked over slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Hi there. Can I help you?" The girl swallowed hard. "My brother's not feeling good," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "He hasn't eaten all day. I don't have money, but I'll pay you back when I'm older." Maya froze. The words hit her like a wave, familiar, sacred, full of courage. She knelt down just like Daniel had done all those years ago, so they were eye to eye. She didn't reach for her wallet, didn't offer charity. She looked at the girl and said, "You don't owe me money, but if you really want to pay me back, promise me you'll never stop believing in yourself, even when it's hard, even when no one else does." The girl blinked, surprised. Then slowly she nodded. "I promise." Maya stood and took the boy's hand. "Let's get you both checked out, and then, how about some warm milk and a peanut butter sandwich?" As she led them down the hall, she glanced back at the waiting room. Near the entrance, half hidden by the potted plant, stood Daniel. He hadn't said a word, hadn't drawn attention to himself. He just watched, his expression unreadable, but his eyes said everything. Maya gave him a small nod. He returned it, then turned and walked out the door, disappearing into the afternoon light. She didn't follow. She didn't need to. His work was done. Hers was just beginning. That night, after the last patient left and the lights were turned low, Maya sat at her desk and opened her old blue notebook, now filled almost to the last page. She wrote, "Today, the clinic opened. A little girl asked for help and promised to pay me back someday. I told her the same thing someone once told me. The circle is complete, but it's not an end. It's a beginning for her, for me, for all the kids who just need someone to see them. My IOU isn't paid. It's being passed on. And I'll keep passing it one warm cup of milk at a time." She closed the notebook, turned off the lamp, and locked the door behind her. Outside, the city hummed with life, cars, voices, distant music. Somewhere out there, another child was cold, hungry, scared. But now there was a place they could go. A place built on a promise made on a freezing morning, kept through years of quiet courage, and that, Maya knew, was the real legacy. Not the degrees on the wall, not the clinic's name, but the unbroken chain of belief, passed hand to hand, heart to heart, from one soul to the next. 10 years after the clinic opened, it wasn't just a building, it was a heartbeat in the neighborhood. The Promise Clinic had grown, but not in the flashy way people expected. There were no giant signs or news vans parked out front. Instead, it was known by word of mouth. Go see the doctor on 5th Street. She listens. Kids called it the milk place because every visit still ended with a warm cup and a kind word, no matter how busy the day got. Maya wasn't just the founder anymore. She was the steady presence in the exam rooms, the one who remembered a child's favorite stuffed animal, who stayed late to talk to a worried parent, who fought with insurance companies so families wouldn't have to choose between rent and medicine. She'd hired a small team, 2 other doctors, a nurse practitioner, a social worker, but she still saw patients 4 days a week. She refused to become just an administrator. "If I lose touch with why I started this," she'd told her staff, "we lose our soul." The clinic now offered more than medical care. There was a homework corner with tutors after school, a pantry stocked with diapers and formula, and a quiet room where moms could rest while their kids played. Every December, they hosted a warm hands drive, coats, gloves, socks, delivered by volunteers who knew the streets like the back of their hands. One rainy afternoon in late fall, Maya was reviewing patient files when her assistant poked her head in. "There's a family in room 3. New. The girl says she's been here before. But I don't see a record," Maya frowned. "How old is she?" "Maybe 9 or 10. And she's with a little boy, looks about 5. Something tugged at her memory. She stood, smoothed her white coat, and walked down the hall. When she opened the door, she stopped short. The girl looked up from the exam table, eyes wide but determined. She held her brother's hand tightly. Her clothes were clean but worn, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. The boy leaned against her, pale and quiet, a faint cough rattling in his chest. "Hi," Maya said gently, stepping inside. "I'm Dr. Maya. What's your name?" The girl swallowed. "Lila." Her voice was soft but steady. "This is my brother Eli. He's been coughing for days. We don't have a place right now, and I didn't know where else to go." Maya nodded, her heart already softening. "You came to the right place." As she listened to Eli's lungs with her stethoscope, she asked Lila simple questions. How long they'd been on the street, if they'd eaten, if anyone was helping them. Lila answered honestly, without shame, but with a quiet dignity that reminded Maya of someone, herself. After the exam, Eli had a mild chest infection, nothing serious. Maya went to the kitchenette and poured 2 cups of warm milk. She brought them back, along with peanut butter sandwiches on whole wheat bread. Lila took the cup with both hands, her eyes never leaving Maya's face. "Thank you," she whispered. Then after a pause, she added, "I'll pay you back when I'm older." The words landed like a bell ringing in a quiet room. Maya didn't flinch, didn't smile too big. She just sat on the edge of the table, meeting Lila's gaze. "You don't owe me money," she said, her voice calm like she was sharing a secret. "But if you really want to pay me back, promise me you'll never stop believing in yourself, even when it's hard, even when no one else does." Lila blinked, surprised. Then slowly she nodded. "I promise," Maya smiled, a real one, warm and knowing. "Good, that's all I need." She spent the next hour connecting Lila with their social worker, arranging a temporary bed at a shelter that accepted siblings, and making sure they had bus passes and meal vouchers. Before they left, Maya handed Lila a small notebook, blue just like the one she'd once received. "Write in it," she said. "Your dreams, your fears, your wins. It's yours." Lila clutched it like treasure. "Will I see you again?" "Every time you need me," Maya said. After they left, Maya stood by the window watching the rain fall. She thought about that freezing morning so long ago, the fear, the hope, the man who saw her not as a burden but as a promise. And now, here she was, offering the same lifeline to another child. Later that evening, as she locked up the clinic, she noticed a figure standing under the awning across the street. Tall coat collar turned up against the rain. She knew that silhouette instantly. She walked over, umbrella in hand. "You've been coming by more often lately," she said. Daniel didn't look surprised. "Hard not to. This place, it's everything I hoped it would be." And more. They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the rain patter on the pavement. "I saw her," Maya said. "The girl, Lila. She asked for milk." "Made the same promise I did." Daniel nodded slowly. "Some promises are meant to be passed on." "She's got fire," Maya said. "And she's taking care of her brother like it's her job." "Just like someone else I knew," he said, glancing at her with a faint smile. Maya looked down, then back up. "I never thanked you properly." "Not really. You don't need to," he said. "You've been thanking me every day for the last 20 years by showing up, by building this, by keeping your word." She shook her head. "It wasn't just my word. It was your belief in me that made it possible." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You know, I used to think kindness was about giving things, money, time, stuff. But you taught me it's about seeing people, really seeing them, and giving them the space to become who they're meant to be." Maya felt tears prick her eyes but blinked them away. "I'm glad you saw me that day." "I'm glad you asked," he said simply. They walked together to the bus stop, rain tapping softly on her umbrella. At the corner, he stopped. "I won't be coming around as much anymore," he said. Her heart skipped. "Why?" "I'm stepping back," he said. "From everything, traveling, spending time with family. Letting others lead," he paused. "But I'll be watching quietly," she understood. He'd never wanted the spotlight. His work was always in the shadows, planting seeds then stepping back to let them grow. "Will you let me visit?" she asked. He smiled. "Only if you bring stories, not thanks." She laughed softly. "Deal." He turned to go, then stopped. "One more thing," he said, pulling a small envelope from his coat. "For the clinic. Not from my foundation. From me," she took it. "You don't have to." "I know," he said. "But I want to." "Consider it my final IOU." Before she could respond, he stepped into the rain and walked away, his figure fading into the gray evening. Back at the clinic, she opened the envelope. Inside was a check, enough to fund a new after-school tutoring program for a full year. On the memo line, he'd written, "For the next Lila." She pinned it to the staff bulletin board the next morning with a note. "This isn't just money. It's a promise. Let's keep it alive." Over the next year, the clinic thrived. Lila and Eli came back regularly, not just for checkups, but for homework help, warm meals, and sometimes just to sit in the quiet room and breathe. Lila started school again. She joined the reading club. She even began helping younger kids tie their shoes in the waiting room. One Saturday, Maya found her organizing the toy bin. "You're good at this," Maya said. Lila looked up. "I want to be a doctor someday." "Like you." Maya knelt beside her. "Then promise me something." "What?" "Stay in school. Every day. Even when it's hard." Lila's eyes lit up. "That's my IOU." Maya hugged her, holding on a little longer than necessary. In that moment, she felt the full circle. Not as an ending, but as a living, breathing thing growing with every child who walked through the door. Years passed. The clinic expanded to include mental health services and a teen mentorship program. Maya trained young doctors who shared her vision. Care with compassion, medicine with dignity. She never sought fame, but her work spoke for itself. Awards came quietly accepted. Invitations to speak at conferences, politely declined unless they served her mission. She never married, but she had family. Leo, now an engineer who volunteered at the clinic's tech nights. Ms. Rivera, who still made Sunday pancakes until the day she passed. and a community of kids who called her Dr. Maya, like it was a term of endearment. And every December, on the anniversary of that cold morning, she'd buy a carton of milk, sit on the steps of the old bookstore, now a community art space, and remember, one winter morning, as she sat there, a young woman approached. She looked to be in her early 20s, dressed in scrubs, a stethoscope around her neck. She carried a small duffel bag. "Dr. Maya?" she asked, voice tentative. Maya looked up. Recognition dawned slowly. "Lila?" The young woman smiled, eyes shining. "I just finished my nursing degree. I came to ask, can I work here?" Maya stood, pulling her into a hug. "You don't have to ask," she whispered. "You belong here." That afternoon, as they walked through the clinic together, Lila pointing out where she'd like to set up a new immunization station, Maya nodding along, Maya felt a deep, quiet joy. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that settles in your bones and says, "This is why." Later, alone in her office, she opened her old blue notebook, now on its 3rd volume, and wrote, "Today Lila came back, not as a patient, but as a healer. The promise is alive. It doesn't end with me. It never did. It lives in every child who dares to believe they matter. And as long as there's one more kid out there shivering in the cold, this work will never be done. But I'm not afraid. Because the light doesn't come